In this video, we're going to focus on the basics of particles and the particle design interface. To begin, I'm going to search over here in effects and presets for particles. We have 3 different particle effects that come natively with After Effects: CC Particle Systems 2, CC Particle World, and Particle Playground. Out of those 3, Particle Playground is the only one that understands Z-depth or 3-dimensionality, although all 3 of these will have very similar interfaces. So we're going to focus on Particle Playground since out of the 3, it offers Z-depth and is also the most complex. Before I begin, I won't be able to take Particle Playground and put it down onto this composition without a solid shape, an image, or something in the composition to add it to. So it's an effect just like any other effect within the After Effects software, where it needs to have a layer that it lives on. So I'm going to start by going to Layer. So I'll go to Layer, New, and we'll create a solid shape. Color doesn't matter. If you want it to matter, it definitely can. If you want to use that color, you are welcome to it. But it typically doesn't matter which color you choose, because the particle system will allow you to dedicate the color, and it can be any color you want. So right now what's happening is they're spouting from the center and kind of coming up over the side, sort of like a very simple water fountain. They're also bright red. Most of this is being dictated by a wide variety of factors: how many particles there are, what kind of gravity there is, and where the emitter, or where the particles spawn from or appear from, is located. So let's take a look at some of our particle playground settings. So we have the cannon, that's our emitter, and we can choose where that is. And notice that that is different from our anchor point. This is our anchor point that dictates where things are rotated or scaled, or position movement comes from. And so the emitter can be elsewhere in our layer. And so to start, I can move it anywhere I want it to be. And now if I hit spacebar, I can see where the particles are coming from, and it has moved. In addition to this, I also have the ability to adjust the radius, so I can make the radius much wider. And that's going to completely change this effect entirely. I can also, let's go ahead and make this, I can make this very, very wide. We can end up having like a starscape. Very different from what we first began with, and all I did was make the size that the emitter hole is much larger. I can also adjust how many particles appear per second. Now be careful with this, because if you want to, say, drastically change it to a really high number like 1,000 or 10,000 or something like that, you might crash your After Effects software. So make sure, if you want to test that out, make sure to save any progress that you've made first, because once we start incrementally increasing this above, say, 500, it can get a little taxed. So let's start with, maybe I want 10. Maybe I want this kind of like glittery. You can also adjust this. If you want like a starburst effect, you could start at 0 particles per second, bring it up to 500, and then back to 0, and you'll have a burst of stars or effect particles that go away. So think like a firework, or something bursting out of something else, like a gunfire or a firework, something like that. Lastly, I can also choose a randomization. And so the cool thing about particle effects is we do have the ability to completely randomize how these things work. And we can say, like, we want you to work within a certain bracket, but you can also randomize this movement. And what that's going to do is create more organic functionality. So, kind of like burning embers or something like that, maybe from a volcano. So I probably, instead of making this 130, maybe I'd cut it in half and maybe make it like 65.